I'm starting the Quest for 200 project where I left off with a Hammerhead core blaster last year. If you remember, Hammerhead, the core in Hammerhead was a 6 flywheel modulus, and I'm using the same setup here as a base. Because Hammerhead was a entry for merge masters and there was a time constraint that I had to get the thing built under. I ended up not being able to do everything that I wanted to do on the core blaster as far as optimizing velocities and coming out of that. So I ended up in Hammerhead. I started out with the 6 flywheels spaced way far apart, and that didn't work very well at all. And I moved them back to not this tight, but fairly close together. And I was getting good velocity. I was getting, with elite darts, I was averaging around 180 feet per second, but there was a consistency issue with it. I'd get some darts in the 180s, I'd even get a couple shots up into the 190s, but then there would be a few that would go through, it would be in the 150s. And so I don't know if I had an alignment issue or if it was the spacing of the flywheels apart. To solve the problem for Hammerhead, to get the thing done by the deadline, I ended up just brassing the barrel all the way through there, which took about 20 FPS. So it was only hitting around 160 FPS average because of the brass barrel that went through the whole thing. So I didn't get to follow up on configurations of the cages. One thing I did really want to try was putting the cages closer together. I just didn't have the time. I had to get the blaster together for the contest. So that's the starting point that I'm going to use for the Quest for 200 project. Is I'm going to take the same basic configuration that I had in Hammerhead, but move the cages closer together. That's the next piece, the next point that I wanted to get tested. And I'm using the same motor configuration to start with. I'm using Kaizen 17114s in the first stage and MTB Rhinos in the second and third stages, running off of a 4S LiPo. So I'm going to start there. I've set these up with the dart posts and the cages so that it's completely modular, so I can drop other cages in. I'm going to try testing with other motors, putting it together, but I'm hoping to duplicate, at least initially, the performance that I had out of the Hammerhead, the core part of the Hammerhead blaster, with this setup, and then move on from there. If this works, this should give me something in the 180s range. It is a starting point, and then I can start looking at other flywheel cages, other flywheels, other motor configurations, and all that to try to find out what the optimum setup for a 6 flywheel blaster is. So this is the starting point for a Quest for 200 project. Hopefully in the next few weeks I'll be putting this together and getting this setup tested and over the chronograph, and then we'll talk about successes and failures on this particular cage, motor, battery configuration. Anyways, this is Ben again, Quest for 200 project. Thanks for watching.